Okay, well, this wasn't the video that I was planning on making today. I'm supposed to be on my way to Spain right now, but I'm in London because I had a connection in London and I missed my connection because my first flight was delayed. And so I have to spend the night here because all the other flights to Spain were sold out. And this is just a part of travel. It happens more than you'd think. And on my last video, someone commented and asked if I could show the more real parts of travel, the hard parts, the tough parts, the scary parts. And I was actually planning on filming like a sit down kind of story time. Hey, sharing all of the, you know, ups and downs of travel. And I was actually gonna do that this week, and then it just, I don't know, it ended up not happening. But this is a sign that I should film this video. So I'm walking right now to my hotel. The Uber there was like 20 pounds and it's only a mile walk, so I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna walk on the highway. But yeah, anyways, I'm gonna stop talking because it's probably really noisy, but I'm about to go to my hotel. We're gonna sit down and talk about the downsides of travel, or not the downsides, but you know, the tougher parts. So I really haven't planned this out at all, but I'm just gonna sit here and tell you guys about some of the times where my travel plans have just gone completely wrong. So we'll start with today. This is like not that big of a deal. This has happened to me before. Basically, I booked 2 flights with 2 different airlines, but I booked it with kiwi.com, which is a website that protects your layovers. So luckily, even though I missed my connection, I got this hotel for free and I got my flight tomorrow morning for free. I'm gonna tell you guys the story of my last flight experience, which is also very not fun and way more not fun than right now. So about 3 weeks ago, I was flying from New York back to Amsterdam. I was flying with my cat in the cabin, which made things already a little bit more stressful. My flight route was from JFK to Lisbon in Portugal, and then I had a 4-hour layover, which is kind of long, especially when you have a cat with you, and then from Lisbon to Amsterdam. So the first flight was on time, everything went well. I mean, my cat did pretty well in the beginning. He wasn't meowing at all, and I was watching some movies, and then as soon as I decided that I wanted to go to sleep, he decided he wanted to meow, and I felt like I needed to like have my whole body in his carrier and like pet him so that he would be quiet. It's because I didn't want to disturb any of the other passengers. So I didn't sleep. It was an overnight flight. I forgot to mention that. It was an overnight flight, which I didn't sleep even a second on. Arrived in Lisbon, I think it was like 10 a.m. And then once I was in Lisbon, since I was entering the EU, I had to go through immigration and everything. So I went through immigration, went through security again to get back into the boarding area. I walked to the bathroom, left the bathroom, and then sat down in a seat like in the general area because my gate wasn't announced yet. I was sitting there in my seat for like an hour and a half trying to stay awake. Puff, my cat's doing totally fine. He's like chilling. An hour passes and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start walking around, see if I can get some food, see what's up. So I go into my bag to make sure I have my phone and my passport, which is like what I do whenever I'm like moving from place to place. I have my phone, but I don't have my freaking passport. So I was obviously very concerned. I looked through all of my stuff. It was nowhere to be found. So the first thing I did was I went back to the security lane because I figured I must have just left it in one of the bins because that was the only reasonable explanation. Went to security, they hadn't seen it. They called some people, they're like, sorry, we can't help you. We haven't heard any reports of your passport. They were like, you have to go to the police station, which is, it's inside the airport, but it's past where you have to immigrate outside, which is complicated when you're already in the boarding area and you already like went through security and immigration and all that stuff. I also had a cat. My cat didn't have the paperwork that was required for Portugal. It just had what was required for the Netherlands. This is all very complicated. In Portugal, you have to have your animal inspected by a Portuguese vet in order to cross the border. So, and by the way, I still have like this flight that I have to catch, and even though my layover was 4 hours, now like it's starting to get closer and closer, so I'm like, what the heck am I gonna do? I go to the vet, she's like moving so slowly with the paperwork. I didn't want to be rude, I was trying to keep my chill, haven't broken into tears yet, trying to keep the positive vibes going. And she's just like looking through all my paperwork, like writing up her own paperwork. She charged me 50 euros. In the end, she handed it to me and she was like, okay, you're all good to go. And then she was, oh, wait, I actually need to see that again. And then she like messed it up and I was about to lose it. Maybe 5-10 minutes later, she gives me her stuff. She's like, good luck. I leave the airport, find the police station. I talk to the policemen and they basically tell me that I need to file a report, that they haven't heard anything, and that really my only options are to wait around and hear whether somebody turns it into the lost and found. And if not, I have to file a police report. Then I would have to go to the US Embassy, deal with all of that. So at this point, first of all, Puff is starting to get really antsy. So I'm super stressed out about him, and I'm just sitting in this police station like, please let that phone ring and like tell me someone found my passport. In the meantime, one of the police officers had the idea that maybe TAP Portugal, the airline that I was flying, would let me fly to Amsterdam with the scan of my passport, because I had a printed out scan of my passport, luckily. They suggested I go to the TAP Portugal desk and ask them if I could fly with just that. They said no, which makes total sense because, I mean, for security reasons and all that, they just said that that was not a viable option. So at this point, I'm running like all across the airport. This is happening in many different parts of the airport. Running with one bag on my front, one bag on my back, and my cat. It's all very heavy. So I'm back in the police station. The police officers are like, I don't know what to tell you. You know, you're gonna have to just go to the embassy and that will be that. So I'm like looking up what happens when you go to the embassy. Tim is texting me like, you're either gonna have to fly home and get a passport or stay in Lisbon for a week until the US sends you a passport. At this point, I'm like on the floor with all my bags around me, crying because I just couldn't even, it just didn't feel like it was happening. I'm starting to realize that I'm not getting out of the Lisbon airport or flying to Amsterdam anytime soon. And I'm just sitting in the police station waiting to file the police report, waiting for the police officer to call somebody to take me to the US Embassy, and the phone rings. Phone rings and this woman picks it up. This woman has no idea what's going on with me. I haven't talked to her at all. And she's talking in Portuguese, but it's kind of similar to Spanish, so I can understand kind of the conversation. And she's like, oh yeah, passport. She spells out my name. And I literally like sprung up from my seat and I was like, that's my passport, that's me. And she was like, okay, hold on, relax, like we got it. And they found my freaking passport. I was so excited. I didn't even ask where they found it. They were like, you need to go try to get on your flight right now. Let's see if you can make it. I had like 20 minutes until the flight was taking off, so I wasn't gonna make it, but the police officers were pretty optimistic about it. So I had 2 policemen escorting me to the TAP Portugal desk. The TAP Portugal people were like, yeah, no, she's not getting on the flight, but they brought me over to the re-ticketing area and they were like, she's had a really tough time. Can you put her on the next flight? I ended up having to pay 200 euros to get on the next flight, but it left 2 or 3 hours later. Not such a big deal. Yes, I felt so freaking bad for my cat, but he did amazing. He was totally fine in the end. But such a big relief. I really didn't think they were gonna find it. I have no idea who found it. I have no idea where it was. I don't know if I left it in the bathroom. I don't know if I left it in security. I didn't even think to ask where they found it. And then, yeah, I got on my flight and I arrived in Amsterdam. I think in total it was like maybe 30 hours of travel. So yeah, that is the story of my last flight. It was definitely a very tough day, but I got through it. And here I am 3 weeks later, missed my connection. All right, I feel like I just talked about that one story for way too long, so I'm gonna move on. But keeping with the theme of flights and flying, because we know how much fun that can be. Okay, we're having a change of scenery because my face was so out of focus before, or at least I thought it was getting out of focus. But we're back. I spent way too long on that first story. We're moving on. I've said many times on my channel before, I really don't like flying. It's super just the most anxious thing that I could possibly do. So on my 21st birthday, I was flying from New York to Vegas with one of my friends. We were flying, cruising, everything was good. And luckily I was kind of half sleeping at the time. I feel like if I was totally awake and alert, I would have just totally freaked out, but I was half asleep and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the plane just felt like it dropped out of the sky, and it just like was going down for several seconds. And since I was like half asleep, it took me a second to realize what was happening, and then I just grabbed my friend's hand and we looked at each other and people were screaming, and I just thought to myself, like, this is it. Like, this is the moment that I've always been thinking about in my head. Like, we're going down. This is happening. It probably honestly only lasted like 3 or 4 seconds in total. It really like wasn't happening that long, but when those seconds are happening, it feels like a freaking lifetime. And then after those 3 seconds, we kind of evened out and we were fine and everyone was fine. So basically this is what happened. We talked to the flight attendants after when we landed, and they kind of tried to explain. I don't exactly know what scientifically was happening with the air. I think we hit an air pocket, but the way that they explained it was that we basically were like riding a wave of air down. We fell out of the sky for a few seconds, basically, is how it felt. We didn't fall like this, because when you fall like this, then people who aren't wearing their seatbelts like hit their head on the ceiling. Everything that's not secure like goes up, and yeah, that didn't happen. We went like this, not like this. But it was still terrifying, and I hate flying, and it just never gets better. I've also had a few aborted landings, which is when the flight comes down to land and then for whatever reason it can't, and then it just, they pull up really quick and you go shooting like so much faster into the air, and that's also really terrifying. But I'm gonna move on from planes. Let's talk about other things. I think I'm gonna go back to Costa Rica. I've already talked about this, but I used to live in Costa Rica, and there were a few scary things that happened while I was there. I'm sure there are more than I can think of right now, but there are a few instances that stick out. Number one, I was on the west coast, a little bit south of Jaco. I was in the water, and the waves were crashing super far out, and there was a really wide area of shallow water. Does that make sense? So I was pretty far out, but it was really, really shallow. And I was just sitting in the water, minding my own business. And I look to my right. There's a freaking crocodile. I don't know how many feet away because I'm not good at distances like that, but I want to say like 30 feet away. It was very close. Not close enough to be super in immediate danger at that second, but it was close enough for me to like get up and run as fast as I could back to the shore. In Costa Rica, there's a lot of crocodiles, especially in the rivers, and the rivers flow out into the ocean, so you can have crocodiles in the ocean, like on the shore. And I was 5 seconds away from a crocodile, and I just think about if I didn't notice it, like I could have been attacked by a crocodile. That was really freaking scary. All right, another story from Costa Rica. I was on a road trip driving from where I was living at the time way across the country, way in the south, to a place I've never been before. We decided to use Waze instead of taking the advice of, I'm talking about my boyfriend at the time. So my boyfriend at the time's family gave us advice on how to get to this place that we were going to. But we were like, we'll take Waze. Like it's a little bit shorter, you know, like we'll just, you know, follow this route. That ended up in many circumstances leading us to the wrong places and dirt roads that we could never get through, and having to turn around, and then it just added tons of hours to our trips. But in this particular instance, we were taking this one route on Waze, and we drove down a really big hill, got to the bottom of it. It's dark now, it's night. And then we realized that when we got to the bottom, there was another really big hill like this. So we were like right here with two big hills on the side. We were in a small manual car that's definitely not meant for off-roading whatsoever. It's super, super low to the ground. And as we got to the base of this other hill, we realized that there was absolutely no way that this car was gonna get up to the hill. So we're like, all right, we'll turn around, go back. So we turned around and tried to get back up this hill. Nope, wasn't gonna happen. We were in the middle of nowhere. No lights of any kind anywhere. Pitch black, no service. We have no idea where we are. Don't know what to do. So we try to push it, right? Like what else are you gonna do? I know how to drive stick, but like not, especially not on a hill. Like that's like the hardest, like it just wasn't gonna happen. So my boyfriend at the time is driving and I'm pushing the car. It didn't work, if you couldn't guess. I tried to drive He tried to push, didn't work. We were not getting anywhere. So while this is happening, his family is starting to get really nervous because we were supposed to arrive a long time ago. They call the police. They're really concerned. They heard the story that people just a few weeks ago like were on some kind of like road trip of sorts and fell off a bridge, and then they found them a few days later, so they're like freaking out for us. So we decide we're gonna lock the car and we're gonna try to walk to the nearest road, which we knew for a fact from where we just came from, there was not a road anywhere near. So we were like, we'll just walk up this hill and see what we find. So we start walking, running because we were scared. We were probably like, I don't know, 19 at the time. So we're running. After maybe like 3/4 of a mile, we find a road with some lights and we see some cars passing by. And as we kind of hit this road, a car starts turning into the road that we were walking on. So we're like, okay, they're probably headed to where we just came from. So we asked them if they want to help us. And of course, they were super, super nice and wanted to help us. They came down to where we were. We got a ride with them. They took the reins. One person got in the driver's seat. 3 other guys started pushing. Me and my boyfriend at the time just like stood back and watched them take over, and luckily they were able to push it back up the hill. We were able to get back to the main road and find our way back to where we were supposed to be going. His family was so happy to see us, but also so upset. His sister was like so worried about us. I felt so bad, but we made it alive. Don't use Waze when you're in Costa Rica. Maybe it's gotten better since then, but I remember this happened many times where we were like, no, we got a shortcut, and then we'd end up on like the most sketchy non-road there could possibly be. Okay, I'm looking at my phone because I do have a few ideas here. So let's see what we should do next. Obviously, you guys know about the falling in the shower in Thailand. I made a whole video on that. If you want to go watch that, I fell in the shower. I sliced my butt open and I got 18 stitches. That was not fun. Okay, this one is from March of this year. I was in Paris. I was with 2 of my friends that I met in my India yoga teacher training. And I was just a few hours away from going to the airport back to the Netherlands, and I was sitting getting my nails done, which I literally never do, but I just had a little bit of time to kill before my flight, and one of my friends had already left, and I had my little bag, my Fjällräven Kanken, cannot pronounce that, at my feet. It had my phone, my wallet, my passport, everything inside of it. So I was getting my nails done. My friend was sitting next to me. Then she was leaving and saying goodbye. So as she was like kind of saying goodbye and everything, just to be nice, she kind of like picked up my backpack and put it on the seat that she was just sitting on. I didn't think anything of it. She left. At this point, my nails were drying, so there was not a woman in front of me. And I was like looking this way, just staring off into space, looking at the mall and everything. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see someone with their hand on my bag. So I quickly look over, and this guy has my bag in his hands. I was like, what are you doing? And then he started talking in, it wasn't French, he started talking in some other language, I really don't know. Started to really set in like that this guy was just trying to steal my bag. Then he started speaking a little bit of English, and he was like, oh, I was just looking for headphones, you know, headphones. And I was like, no. And I just had no chill because I was like, this just, no. Like, you're trying to freaking steal my bag. So then one of the women from the nail salon was like, what's going on? In French, talking to him. And he was like, I was just looking for headphones. Like, I was just looking for headphones in her bag. Like, no. The kind of panic set in. Even though he didn't actually take it, I was like, oh my gosh. That had my passport, my wallet, my phone. Like, I can't believe I was this close to having my bag stolen in this mall. I wouldn't have been able to fly home that night. I would have had to get a new passport, new phone, new everything. I just couldn't stop replaying the whole thing in my head because I just couldn't believe that happened, and I was so glad that he didn't steal my bag because that would have really sucked. Okay, what else do we have here? Okay, this is another story, which is actually kind of sad in my opinion. This was in Portugal with 2 of my friends from America. We were at a bar on a Saturday night, and it was a really chill mojito bar. It wasn't like a bar with a lot of music or anything. We were sitting at a table. We were just hanging out, and out of absolutely nowhere, all of a sudden we hear like a ton of commotion, people screaming, people running, stampeding outside of the bar, and people just running inside the bar, stampeding. And so me and my friend's initial reaction was get up and like run for your life. We were sitting at the table right beside the window, so we felt we were the most vulnerable. So we ran to the back of the bar and people were just coming in. Everyone was running. It was super chaos. And my first thought was there's probably a shooting, probably a terrorist attack. This is insane. And my friends had the same thought. Like my first thing was like, there's probably guns and we're probably in the middle of a terrorist attack, which is super sad that that's our first thought. I feel like especially as Americans, or as an American, I think that my reaction was particularly focused on that because when I talked to a few of my friends from Europe, they were like, really? I wouldn't have thought that at first. And I was like, interesting. But of course, because of the absolute shittiness that is our current state of the world, that was my first thought. After maybe 2 or 3 minutes, the commotion kind of dwindled down. Our hearts are like racing out of our chests, beating out of our chests. And I start kind of like walking towards the middle of the bar to peek and see what's happening. And a guy was like, I would stay back a little bit, like we're not really sure what's happening. And after a little while, we learned from the people outside coming in and the millions of police officers that what had happened was, I think 2 groups of people or 2 individuals, I'm not totally clear on that, got in a fight where they started picking up their glasses and throwing glass. So there was flying glass everywhere, all over the street. So people obviously started running because that's really freaking scary. But yeah, it was basically 2 groups of people or 2 people getting super rowdy, throwing glass at each other, and people got scared and started to run. And when people run, it's like a chain reaction. And in the end, no one got severely hurt and nothing absolutely devastating happened. But it was super, super scary. And I just think that's sad that that's the world we live in, where we have to be so afraid of things like that. Okay, I was also bit by a dog in Thailand, but I've also told that story on my channel before, so I don't really want to go into it. I basically was just bit by a dog and it was fine. It hurt. And I didn't get rabies, which was good. What else? Well, I feel like I have to throw in a classic sleeper bus in here because sleeper buses are just notorious for being absolutely horrible. I feel like you should experience it once in your life if you're in Asia, but if you can fly, fly. I mean, maybe don't fly because it's way worse for the environment, but if you have to, I would say if your bus is over 12 hours, fly. I went on an 18-hour sleeper bus in India, and it was terrible. I don't even know what else I can say. It was just, you're on a bus for 18 hours. Picture that. I'm really tired. I should go to sleep. Okay, I'm gonna tell one more story. Someone just commented on my video of me cutting my hair and said, you should cut the hair off those arms of yours. Thanks. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. And if this is so long and you're still watching, I love you so much. I know that this is the weirdest video I've ever posted and it's super rambly and ranty and weird, but hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you in my next video, which will be my normal travel vlogs with hopefully not as many mishaps that were included in this video. I'm gonna eat these now because whenever I've been in the UK, I have to get honeycomb. And I'm gonna get in this comfy bed and watch Queer Eye because I just discovered that show and it's really entertaining. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.